Nerd Soul.
Yeah, late ill kid at OneYoungsta holding it down, bringing that street geek and nerd soul. Like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell. Let's go because you best believe it, y'all. We up in here, 133Art, One Nation doing our thing. But I gotta introduce to you the man, the myth, the legend. I give to you, Jason Reeves. What's up?
What's happening, y'all? How y'all doing? What's going on?
He's like, what's happening, y'all? It's like, look, this is what we doing. This is what it is. So, today we're getting into issue number 1 of One Nation, and you've already revealed the first arc of One Nation. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
If you could give people an idea of what One Nation is, because of course you never know when somebody coming in brand new. What is One Nation?
One Nation is an interventionist superhero story about Paragon, aka Deacon Taylor, who ends up running up against these other superheroes who want to change the world, hopefully for the better.
Hopefully for the better.
Hopefully they make it through.
So when it comes to One Nation, do you, I guess, to add on to that, where did you kind of get the idea to start doing One Nation?
I've always wanted to do it. Since I've been collecting comics since I was like 8, and I've been drawing comics since I was like since I was like 4. So it's kind of the culmination of all I ever wanted to do in comics. I used to have this sort of X-Men style black superhero group when I was an adolescent called the Dark Power. And the main character was this cat named Lion, and he had claws, but he was a black dude. And they were on the X-Men, right? And that idea just kept resonating with me, and I kept developing a team of superheroes who want to change things, want to save the world, starring black folk, because I just didn't see a lot of them at the time. And even when I was still very young, I had that desire to want to see myself in comics, so, and in media in general. So I think the Dark Power sort of evolved into One Nation, and now finally I have the skills and the opportunity and the company and the backing and Kickstarter and all that to tell these stories. So
cool.
That's kind of where it was.
So I'm gonna jump into it. In One Nation, in issue 1, we're dropped into essentially a war zone. Like we drop right into it, and we're getting sort of the thoughts, the ideas of Deacon Taylor, and he continues to go over kind of like how he was brought up, being the best he could be. When making this, how is it? How did you feel about making sure that we kind of made sure that his ideas, his thoughts, his attitude was put forward before kind of anyone else got the segment to get their input in?
I took it as like his thought bubbles in the book are like his journal, like he's basically journaling his story to the reader. And I wanted the story to be about him. Like eventually we introduced Sundiata and the rest of the 10th and all that stuff, but he's where it starts. He's the first guy talking about, sort of where he came from and how ugly that origin story ends up being, and why he decided to enlist as a soldier. And ultimately that just kind of goes back to him wanting to help, and he ends up becoming a de facto hero under duress because his unit gets ambushed. But he didn't necessarily want to be heroic in the sense of like standing in front of people with his fist on his hips, but he did want to help out, and he's always had these abilities, but he couldn't go full force with it because his parents always told him, man, like, you can't be showy about this. They're gonna take you from us. We don't trust the world to protect you like we would. And if you're out there, we don't know what could happen. We don't know what we can do. So be cool, but at the same time, this kid has this, like a lot of kids just want to go out there and they want to, safeguard everybody else. They have this empathy, this compassion, and that's what Deacon has.
All right, nice. Now, speaking of the parents, we see him in the war zone, and it kind of backtracks a little bit to where he's from in Eunice, Louisiana. And it shows him as a kid kind of helping out and doing things like that. And I think it goes a long way to show his ability at that time, his mind state at that time, but also the fear of the parents. And I guess for me, it gives you, it sort of drives home what the parents are truly scared about. And especially with how they come upon Deacon Taylor, it also kind of drives that, it helps cement that. How important is it when dealing with the parents, how important is it to show kind of their mindset for you or their morals for you?
Right. It's the ultimately the book starring these black protagonists. When you're dealing with that, when you're dealing with us, when you're dealing with me, a person from the South, Paragon's from the country, you know what I'm saying? Like that's deep South Louisiana, you know what I'm saying? And his parents are from the same, from surrounding areas, New Orleans, what have you. You have to deal with that underlying fear because of white supremacy, because the specter of slavery and Jim Crow and all that. There's a specter of fear going on there. So their perspective, when we first see them, they're being chased by rednecks.
Yeah.
So and the specter of that fear of I could get got at almost any time just doing the most banal things. So the sort of backstory to that backstory is Deacon's dad, Cornell, is a doctor in the Deep South. He has his own practice way back in these olden days.
Yeah. And
those rednecks end up chasing him out of town, but he's only in this particular section of town to treat someone. And they're chasing him. And they chase him and his wife out. It's dark, sundown town vibes. And it could very well be over for them if not for this chance meeting with who eventually becomes their son, Deacon. So showing the mindset of them, showing that underlying fear that affects his life up until the point that he decides to leave and join the military. They're going to take you from us. We don't know what they're going to do, and that's from having that underlying fear of the specter of Jim Crow, slavery, growing up black in the South. And that was very important because I think Deacon, when he does don the Paragon guise, I guess, or the Paragon heroic nature, it's to quell some of that fear, right? Mm-hmm. Like I think he hears his parents, but man, he's like, there's got to be more to just living in fear.
Yeah, and not only more to living in fear, but also to, like you said, like fix things and helping people, because he, in this first issue, speaks about a utopia. We see him drawing this idea of like utopia where we're not going to need, people aren't going to be hungry. You're not going to need war. Those kind of things we're going to be kind of past that. Sort of like when I talk about Star Trek, like we're kind of past that. You do have Romulans and stuff, but humans got their stuff together with each other. like you got Klingons and stuff, but that's outside of Earth. And you see that even though he's a soldier, he does have this idea about utopia and maybe doesn't know how to get there yet, but he definitely has this want to create just a place where people can just be without having to worry about, someone coming to shoot them or steal from them or harm them in any way, because of course, like you said, being from the deep south and also knowing what his parents went through, and then of course what he went through as a youth all the way through, even in the military, wanting to not only see that for others but also see that for himself. And I think that's an awesome thing to add into a comic book like this. Why do you think he, as a character, why do you think Deacon wants that utopia so much? I mean, we even see him come home and kind of start building that space. Why do you think, even though you're behind the production of it, but him as a character, why do you think that he needs that so much when he's in the military?
In his mind, he never was like a brutish type of dude. He's he doesn't believe that violence solves everything, or that he doesn't have necessarily an aggressive nature when he's not on as as a big burly superhero. But I think in his mind, he feels like if everybody's needs are taken care of, then there's no reason for them to attack a different person, like an other. There's no need to create that if everybody's needs are taken care of. So the idea of utopia for him is like really satisfying. Like, man, my dad could be a doctor and not get chased out of town. My mom can, plant or work in her garden without watching her back, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I think that's really appealing to him. Also, the idea that I can be me, fully me, with my powers and everything. I can fly without having, without the fear of that somebody's going to take me from my parents and dissect me or try to figure out what I am. I think the idea of utopia in that sense is very appealing to him because he doesn't want the war, man. Like, he doesn't necessarily want to fight. He just will. He's willing to do that to get to his goal, to get to that goal. And yeah, he doesn't know how to do it. At that time in this issue, he has no clue the amount of sacrifice it might take to get there. He's just a kid, man. He's like 19, 20 in this issue. He's like
just stepping into adulthood. He's like just dipping his toe into it.
Yeah.
As far as I wanted to ask a question about in the comic book, we see him actually arrive. He arrives, crash lands onto our planet as a infant, basically. Will we see him in what's like sort of like a pod / egg kind of situation?
A golden egg,
yeah, golden egg. Will we see more about that behind that? Will we ever hear more about maybe where he came from, or is there a society out there that he can reach back to? Or is it, something that's completely gone without, I guess, spoiling maybe further volumes or whatever?
I'm not going to spoil it, but there's a definitive origin for all of that stuff. There's a definitive origin for that stuff. Like, cool. That stuff has the backstory has a backstory, and it's a trip. Like, so yes, when One Nation is over, because One Nation is finite. There's I'm still deciding how finite it is. In my head, there's like 3 solid arcs of One Nation before we get to everything. But I already wrote the ending. Like, the ending is already there. And the reason Paragon got here, Deacon got here, the way he got here, and the fact that he comes in the golden egg and and all that is already there. So yeah, you'll see. Readers, you will see.
All right. So we are in a period piece. So we're in sort of like a Desert Storm situation where you have the military out there. There's people dealing with RPGs. On the ground. Explosions, a lot of bullets, a lot of blood. On the action side, how fun was it to kind of map out these situations, these panels? Because when the blood comes, I mean, you have people getting like burned alive. You have bullets flying all through people. Before Paragon or a Deacon is like, yo, I've got to do something because we're
Right.
getting ambushed. And on one side, hey, you show what an ambush will really look like. But how fun was it to be like, okay, now we get to really do some bullets and blood in this issue.
I'm the action dude, so I love writing action scenes, and drawing action scenes and just going into it. I did I did a little bit of research before trying to actually draw a war zone and write a war zone. So I was looking into different books about Desert Storm and reading articles and Wikipedia and all kind of stuff. Just I kind of immersed myself a little bit in the Desert Storm just to kind of get an idea of what it looked like. I have this picture book called it's called Whiskey Tango Foxtrot, and the acronym is WTF. And it was a book about Desert Storm 1. And man, the images in that thing is so visceral. It was like my main ref when I went to draw the thing. And one of the biggest compliments I got from a soldier early on, I think from I was doing, I forget what show I was doing, but we were selling it. It was a while back, but the guy said, "Yo," he said, "This is what it like." This cat had been, in the Middle East. He had been in theater, and he was like, "Dude, this is how it is. Like this. How'd you capture this? Are you a soldier?" I was like, "Nah," but I do have one of my best friends has done 2 tours in the Middle East. And what he will talk about, and what he will inform me and help me kind of figure some of this stuff out. Because they ain't gonna tell you everything.
Yeah.
People are in my experience, cats are very guarded about some of that because it's not all good, right? But what he did, help me develop. It kind of led into what that looks like in the book. So shout out to Dedrick. Appreciate you, brother. So yeah, I was trying to do that, trying to make sure that war is hell in this book. There's a reason why Paragon needed to drape that flag around him and jump into the fray.
Gotcha.
It's an ambush and it's dirty, so he got to do something.
Yeah, and when you say it's dirty, there are no heroes, around. Like
Right.
because of course, there's a part in the ambush where he becomes Paragon for the first time, or what will be called Paragon for the first time, and he even says that we lost because I had been holding back. So he even kind of takes that responsibility, even though he knows I'm not supposed to do this, or he's been taught not to do this. You see the kind of person he is, I lost my fellow men because I wasn't, like he said, being all I could be. But it's understandable because especially they'll be quick to say, well, you're property of the military. Right. And your body, your veins, blood, whatever, skin samples, whatever, it belongs to us now. So right. It is understandable that you don't want to just go out there and say, hey, well, I'm a superhero, because he even talks about pretending to be injured or sick so that he doesn't super play up how this doesn't affect him. Like all this training or whatever that they're doing, he's like, that doesn't. This is easy for me. So,
Right.
He has to kind of play up, similar to like in Incredibles in the first one where they're telling Dash to like not run too fast. Like,
right. Well, it's like
he's like slow down a little bit. Okay, speed up some.
Becoming property of the military is like his greatest fear. Like that's that's his parents' greatest fear, right? So yeah, the reason to conceal your identity is to not get caught, not become the property of that. And I thought it was an interesting play on the Superman mythos, right? Like I thought, the same thing with Clark Kent with Superman developing, or Kal-El developing the Clark Kent persona, and then changing in a phone booth and being goofy as Clark Kent. Well, I was like, how would I approach that if I was like a superhuman, right? And with these circumstances, I got to play around with it. So we put him. His setting is the Middle East, but how do you do the secret identity thing as a soldier in wartime in theater? So I was like, we could probably play around with it like this. Like his worst fear is becoming property of the government. So you have to conceal it. And then how, as a soldier, do you conceal your identity when you're so cataloged? When you're around your unit all the time, you're not allowed to go anywhere because then you're AWOL. So how do you do that? And it's a little clunky the way he figures that out, like the way, but it actually kind of works for him. Like in Safe House, which is another part of Arc 1. It shows a day in the life of how he sort of does his secret identity thing, where Deacon gets missing for 2 seconds and Paragon shows up. So I thought it was kind of cool, like kind of funny, kind of a different take on the secret identity thing.
Yeah, and from that moment, even looking back, where there's a moment where he's a child. And there's a storm, there's some car trouble, and essentially kind of like stuck out there in the midst of all this. And you see him even then kind of determined, like, hey Dad, I can do it. I can do this. I can fix things. I can save the situation. So you can see even then he was like, I've got this. I can handle this. And it. Even then, you can see the worry on his parents' faces, like, what would this turn into? What can this turn into?
Right.
But you can easily see that he's kind of aligning himself with this ideal of like, if you do the right thing because it's the right thing to do, and he has this kind of moral North Star from his parents, and I do like that kind of look from the way Superman is done, where now we can see how good and how moral and how upright 2 Black parents can be for a Black child, because we normally don't see that in our daily media. And seeing how he's raised up and how he becomes a hero, even though he's figuring it out, we can see that foundation that's there, and I think that's awesome.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah,
I wanted to portray a Black family. Finally, hopefully, it continues. Like a Black superhero has a good foundation, a good family who knows him.
Like nobody has to be crazy or in jail or nothing. It's just a normal, regular family where people just being good because they're good. That's it.
Right.
And it doesn't have to be overcomplicated. Nobody's throwing drinks in anybody's face.
It's not that they're not perfect. They're just trying to be, who they are, and they've instilled, parts of who they are into this kid, and he grows up, and thankfully he grows up to be Paragon. Like,
yes, Now, on the other hand, in this issue, towards the end of the issue, we do see, since he's in the military and since he does save his unit, or save the the people that are in his unit that were ambushed but that still made it. He saves them, and of course we get a look at we get a look at the military and their ruminations on like, hey, what is this? What's going on? We need to get in front of it. And we see, this good deed will not go unpunished.
Absolutely not. Yeah, man. I mean, what is the biggest what's a good word for it?
Can I take your car?
One of the things that the military industrial complex, or white supremacy, whatever you want to call it, is good at is ruminating and plotting and making plans. But like, my keys are...
Yeah, I'm gonna take your car.
Yeah, okay. I'm trying to tell you.
I'm sorry.
One of the things that the military industrial complex, United States, white supremacy, whatever you want to call it, whatever you want to, the system, the man is good at is making plans, plotting, seeing what's on the chessboard and figuring out how to move the pieces to their advantage. So yeah, they see a man that can lift the tank over his head and they're like salivating, like, we have to control this. But credit where credit is due, they don't know his capabilities, so they're not gonna try to get him by force. They're gonna try to manipulate him. And but then at the end of the conversation, one of the gentlemen says, make sure we got the snipers. Make sure the snipers are ready though, just in case.
Yeah, there's a lot of chatter, and even they're like, we want to suppress this, but it's kind of spreading like wildfire. So now what do we have to do on the back end to suppress it? Because they're already like, we're thinking it's a serviceman, but we don't super know. I mean, he's wearing the clothes, but there might just be somebody who just picked up clothes from someone who had, died, who knows? Or someone in the area that has been given clothes. But they're like, we think it's someone who's a serviceman, and if he is, he's way outside of bounds of what he's supposed to be doing. So they're already kind of like cooking plans together, and none of them are like, let's be happy that this happened.
Man, they need that though. I mean, look, if you want to win, you got to have the best chess piece. So they need that guy, and I don't know, fortunately or unfortunately, their goals align at this point in time. So they don't necessarily have to use the snipers just yet, but they have to make provisions, man. I will say it's a smart play to make sure you have everything set up and make sure the manipulations are set up. So, we'll see who wins out.
In that manipulation, because this is towards the end of the issue, there is a report, of course, because, news is going everywhere. I mean, this is, it's not every day you see somebody just flying in a war zone and saving people and stuff.
Right.
So General Baker comes on and says, like the Army intelligence, we've been looking around and stuff, but then says he has aided this country greatly in the war effort and is to be considered a national hero. In my opinion, I always see that when I first read it, I read this part a couple of times. That is super manipulative. They think they slick. Because they're like, all right, if we make this dude seem like we so excited about him, he'll come forward on his own, and we won't even have to figure out who he is. Like, he'll come through on his own, and that'll solve a lot of our problems. And if he is a military person, then we own him essentially. So I always thought that line was very sneaky. Like, is he really a national hero? I mean, he is, but I mean. Did you say that because you love him so much, or are you trying to get him to come forward?
I'm saying
It's like, can we get him through Vanity?
Baker is not a slouch, man. Like Baker looks like a schlub, but he ain't.
Yeah, he does look kind of. He looks like just middle management,
right? and a lot of times he acts like middle management, but he
didn't become a general for nothing. So
them stars ain't for nothing, right?
Yeah. Okay. Got it. But yeah, saying, we wish to grant you the Congressional Medal of Honor and all this stuff, your good deeds and all the kissing he can do. I'm like, yeah, all right. Like, look, if I was Paragon, I'd be like, yeah, I'm good. I'm cool. I brought this suit out for one day. I ain't even taking it back out no more. Nah.
I mean, young men, man, you're a young man, you 19, 20 years old, you hear that, you're on the news like that. I mean, I try to think of the psychology of my characters a lot of times when I'm writing them, and I'm like, when I'm 19 and 20 and somebody is praising me for what I've always wanted to do, like I've always wanted to be fully me, they might get you.
Yeah. I mean, I've when I was covering sports, I remember we were talking about this young gentleman who had he was buying these cars and he got in an accident and stuff, and I remember saying, don't get me wrong, what he did was terrible, but I can see myself at 21 being like, I got to get me a Corvette. Right. I got to get me a Corvette, and I gotta do the most in it. Like if that thing say 200, I gotta do 200.
I'm saying.
So it's like I understand that. Just hopefully there's an older man in my life to say, look, I know you want to do 200, but ease up. You know what I'm saying? Just enjoy the car, but you ain't got to do that. But. Yeah, the good thing
is enter Sundiata.
Yeah, enter Sundiata, who we do see for like 2 seconds in the end of this issue, and it's a good peek into the rest of the series. If you could, because we don't really get a lot of Sundiata. Like we see him, he's holding an issue where they've put Paragon on the cover. Like they really working that vanity angle. But they put him on the cover, and he's holding it, and he's talking about the quote next big thing. I guess from your perspective, how does Sundiata see the beginnings of this whole Paragon thing?
He sees it as almost a call to action for him, because Sundiata, he knows. You know what I'm saying? Like, Paragon is the first in a sense of media coverage, in the sense of the mainstream. But Sundiata has been here, man. Like, he's been doing it. Karamats are not a new thing to him. But now that they're out, I feel like in his mind now it's the time to strike. Now's the time to let it go. All my machinations, all my plans. Okay, it's time now. And I think he's been kind of lying in wait. And that's why when we see him at the end, we get a straight on close up of the eyes, man. Like, just sitting in the chair, like, okay.
It just says, I was wrong. But it definitely lets you know that you guys are setting it off and there's more to come. So
yeah, absolutely.
With that more to come, I'll throw it to you. This issue, I really dig this issue because we jump into a lot of the action super quick and head first. What are your final thoughts looking back now that we have the whole arc before us and we can, enjoy this and go in and buy it? Make sure it look Black Friday coming, y'all. Black Friday, black comics, black superhero. Look, y'all can get black on black on black. All right,
man, it's a theme. It's a theme.
Black Friday by black. So
black everything.
That's what I'm saying. So in looking back at this, what are your final thoughts on issue 1 of One Nation? Final thoughts of like, its creation, any of the production stuff. Where do you stand on it? Looking back at it now.
I'm so proud of it. It's my baby. like I said, man, since I'm 10 years old, this thing has been, just rummaging around in my brain. So it's my baby. All my writers, Alvern, Robert, my homeboy John, they know how extensive these outlines are that I send them. And I've been writing these outlines for years. So that's how we know how the story is going to progress. But it's my baby, man. I'm so proud of it. I'm proud of the art, even though that's early Jason Reeves. Still, man, like that's back when I did the line work on it. Luis Guerrero did the colors on it. Shout out to my brother Luis. Listen, like it was like a moment in time when we came together to do that, and I'm so proud of how it came out, man. Like I had been looking for colorists at the time, and nobody could get it right. And then Lewis comes on and just blew it out of the water.
Especially with that ambush scene, man. I'm like, man, he came through. It was visceral.
I was looking for writers for a long time. I still don't consider myself a traditional writer. So I always like to collaborate with my folk, and they come in and they make me look so good. And Alvern, and Lewis, just it's like lightning in a bottle right there. And I was like, man, so I have nothing but good things to say about it. I know a lot of people say, man, I see my old stuff in a cringe. I don't. Not with this thing. Not with this book. This is if I used to say, especially back in 2012 when this came out, I was in California. I was freelance. I didn't have a job, and I hadn't had a real job for about 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
And when One Nation came out, I said, if I died today, I had lived the dream. I had did what I wanted to do. And I still feel that way about this book, man. It is.
Well, look, we got Arc 1. We actually got Arc 1 and some extra stuff because we got old druids. We got old druids to cover sooner or later. We got Black Lotus to cover sooner or later. And man, look, it's coming, y'all. So Mr. Reeves, tell people where they can find you and buy One Nation.
133art.com is the hub. That's where you can find us. That's where you can get information on us. That's where you can get all the merch, all the apparel, all the comics. Come through, get you some discounts, do your thing. Just love up on 133art.com. One Nation Arc 1 bundle, $24.99, available right now. And if you frequent TikTok, hit up our TikTok shop. Same deal. All the stuff is on there. If you frequent Instagram and Facebook, look, we got the Instagram and Facebook shops. Hit those up. Soon to have a Square shop. Pretty soon. And we're working on that. And that's where you can find us, man. We're on Blue Sky, 133art at 133art. We're on Facebook at 133art Publishing, Instagram at 133art. You know what I'm saying? We're on X, but I don't be on there, so whatever. LinkedIn.
Yo, they have a content creation platform now. You can drop videos and stuff on there. So look, don't sleep.
You know what I'm saying? Don't sleep. We be in places. So at 133art, 133art, or at 133art Publishing on basically all social media. Come see what we doing.
That's what's up. So, of course, NERD, SOUL, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, podcast, all that jazz. Until the next time that we have to reveal our powers. This is from us to you saying peace.
Peace.